Well,
Okay.
you
All right.
look
I'm ready.
amazing. I'm very excited to talk to you. I mean,
Thank you.
I met you once.
Yeah, where?
My friend's father was the director of Step by Step, John Tracy.
Oh, oh.
But I just remember you coming up to because it was for people, it's a sitcom, so it's like you tape all in one night, and you came up and was so sweet to us and met us all because we were all in college at the time.
Why would I be anything
I
else?
don't know. So how is it going? So you've had your house in Palm Springs for a while. So when the quarantine started, you just went out there and haven't left?
Well, we've been in this house for 43 years, so and it's a large piece of property. We kept over the years, kept buying contingent property, and pretty soon it got to be 93 acres, which is way too much property for two people, but it sure gives me lots to do. The downside is that I fractured my hip at the end of October, and I I didn't think much it hurt, but the doctor said, "Oh, it's a stress fracture." And I thought, "So what?" And you can't move if you have a fracture. You can't move for at all for 6 weeks. So the
Oh,
first 6 weeks I was just confined to bed, and then it's been real hard to recover quickly without doing more damage. So when this whole pandemic came along, as awful as it is, it was easy for me to stay at home because that's where I've been and I've got lots to do and I grow my own vegetables and that kind of thing.
yes. So we're going to get into, there's so many things I want to talk about, but for just to
Okay.
give people a little background, the world got to know you, even though you did many actress parts before Three's Company. It was Three's Company. Then you had many other series, She's the Sheriff, Step by Step, all your books, your first book. I know it was made into a movie where you played yourself. Um, I love your love story with Alan
Mm,
and that you
me too.
guys incredible business partners. And my favorite part in the movie. Now, I don't know if this was you playing yourself or maybe they did another version of your movie, but I just remember so you're on this hit sitcom and you're the breakout star. And you're
Mm-hmm.
so funny in Three's Company, which is about
Mm-hmm.
two girls who live with a guy, John Ritter, and he has
Mm-hmm.
to pretend to be gay. And it was just like ahead of its time and so funny and clever because the landlord wasn't going to allow it. And and you were kind of the first person, way ahead of your time, to say, to ask for your worth as an actress and as a female. And you, coming back for the next year, asked for a significant raise. And like, tell me a little bit about that
Yeah.
and how it came about and how you chose to take that stand.
Well, my contract was up. It was year 6. And when I first signed my contract, I was so happy to have the gig that I signed for anything, way below industry standards. But now the show's number one and has been for 6 years. I've been on each year at least 55 national magazine covers, featured on 60 Minutes, 2020, Dateline. All the important shows are featuring this breakout dumb blonde because people don't usually like dumb blondes, but this one they liked. And so when it was time to renegotiate, it was very clear to me that the men were being paid 10 to 15 times more than me, including John. And it was not, I'd like to say I was the first feminist, but it was really about worth. I was selling more tickets than anybody. And shouldn't you be paid commensurate with the amount of tickets you sell? But they wanted to make
Tickets
an
because you
example
were
of,
live tickets because you were doing live shows on the off season. Is that what you mean? Tickets?
no. I mean, I use tickets as a euphemism.
Oh,
Tickets meaning the viewership on Three's Company was so huge and my popularity was so huge
got
that
it.
I knew that I was a large part of that revenue coming in.
Right.
And okay, time, boys, to share the wealth a little bit, not a lot, especially not by today's standards. But see, Laverne and Shirley had just renegotiated, and as I like to describe it, they gave ABC a colonic because both Laverne and Shirley negotiated at the same time, so they couldn't risk losing Laverne and Shirley. John and Joyce would not align with me. They were afraid. And so I went alone, and they had already renegotiated. And because I was alone, they could do the show without Chrissy Snow. Although, as it turns out, the two other girls that they brought in, lovely as they were, it wasn't the original chemistry, and the public didn't take to it. And so those shows didn't sell as well, and in syndication, they don't they don't pack the punch that the original three does. So my husband went in to renegotiate, and he said to me the night before, he had gotten a call from the second in command guy in the CFO's office at ABC, and he said, "You didn't hear this from me, but they're going to hang a nun in the marketplace, and it's going to be Suzanne." So when Alan left the next morning, he stopped uncharacteristically at the front door and said, "This could all blow out of the water." I said, "No, it's a negotiation. We'll ask for this, they'll counter with that, you'll come back with this, and sometime we'll meet in the middle and everyone will be happy." Well, 3 hours later, because there are no cell phones, so that seemed like an eternity, Alan opens the front door very slowly and paddles up the stairs slowly, and I knew it was bad news. I walked to the landing, and he looked at me and he said, "You're out." I said, "What do you mean I'm out?" He said, "You were fired from the moment I walked in the door. They had already planned to fire you to make an example so no other women in television could have the audacity to ask for parity." So that's how I lost that great job. Did I want to leave Three's Company? No. Am I sorry I left Three's Company? Sometimes there are veiled gifts, and it forced me to reinvent. I realized that all I had going for me was that everybody knew my name. So Alan went to Vegas and made a 2-year deal at the MGM Grand Hotel, and we put together a great act, and it became a really successful show. In fact, in 1987, I was voted Las Vegas Female Entertainer of the Year, along with Frank Sinatra as Male Las Vegas Entertainer of the Year. It's quite heady to walk up on stage with Frank Sinatra.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at all negatives as positive. What can you learn from this? How do you grow from this? I at the time, I would have never wanted it to happen. In retrospect, I'm the only one still working. We had to constantly reinvent. And now I realize when you're in business, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're on a top hit sitcom, our careers, the trajectory is high and low and up and down. You've experienced this.
Right.
I know the ride up, what that feels like. I know what it feels like right at the top. But I also know when I feel it's just starting to dip. And when you're just starting to dip, that's when you turn right or left and go in a different direction. So that's what I've done ever since. And my only complaint in life is that I work too much.
Well, the part of the movie that I remember so vividly, because I grew up as a kid watching TV, and
Right.
I was youngest of 5 from an Irish Catholic family. I saw that you had that similar background, and you went to an all-girl college before your first marriage.
High school.
High school. Okay. And
Yeah. I
but
got pregnant before that college thing happened.
I figured
Remember
that.
and when you were a Catholic schoolgirl, my granddaughter said to me recently, whoa, wait a minute. Are you saying that you lost your virginity and got pregnant in the same night? And I said, yep, lucky me. But I got this great kid who's just the love of my life. If you read any Mother's Day post yesterday, there's no mother who wouldn't be happy with what he said.
Oh, I know. And I loved that because I knew that because we were a family. I was obsessed with you. I'd watch the show. We always had a subscription to People magazine my whole
Yeah.
life. My dad even got it for me when I went to USC. So every
Wow.
Saturday I could look forward to it.
Yeah.
Hence what I do now, and I remember, knowing that you were leaving the show and then watching the other blonde girls. They tried to make one a cousin or something.
Right.
And it was just like, oh, this is such a bummer, because I loved the show and I was a person who loved sitcoms and stuff. But the TV movie that I remember is the scene is you're waiting in the car. Alan goes to do the negotiation, and he comes back, and you go, well, how did it go? or the character. I don't know if it was, might have been someone else playing you. I don't remember. You probably know what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
the character playing your husband says, well, get ready to sell the ThighMaster or something. Something about the ThighMaster. And I just remember going, I had mixed feelings about it. It's like, I think it's obviously this partnership has worked in your marriage and also in business. But then I remember watching it and being like, oh, he ruined it for her. He pushed too hard as someone that whenever that came out, and but
And
it's a difficult place to be.
that was the narrative they put out there.
Mm-hmm.
They lied. They didn't tell the truth about what they were doing. All they put out, because they had all the money. You can't fight a corporation. I learned that. So they put out their narrative, which was that I was greedy and who did I think I was, and that her husband is a Bengali. And this was my idea to renegotiate. Because I said to him one day, it doesn't feel right that John and all the other men on lesser shows are making so much more money than me. And so it didn't even seem like a risky thing at the time. It seemed so absolutely justified. But they tried to make a villain out of my husband. And, the good thing about Alan is he doesn't care. He says, I don't give a shit. What has happened in the years since is ThighMaster started because I'm in my dressing room. I bought a pair of Manila Blahniks. They were $565. They're completely plain, nude, with the perfect, pointy toe, just the right amount of toe cleavage, just the right heel. And I'm standing there in my bra and underpants, and I thought, oh, Alan is going to think I'm so stupid for spending almost $600 on a pair of shoes. Think of how much that was back then.
Right.
So I walked out in my bra and underpants and my new shoes, and I said, how do you like my new shoes? And he said, great legs. And I went, oh my God, that's the commercial. So that's how I got to write those shoes off, because if you look at the old ThighMaster commercial, it starts on my feet, on those shoes, works up my leg with him off camera saying, great legs. And I go, thank you. And I'm in a leotard. And we sold 10 million of them. So screw you, ABC.
And you really were the first person that I recall being the actress that went into a more entrepreneurial business and using your name in a whole nother way. And also the first to do the infomercials, or for at least that I remember, and really utilizing the television to sell a product direct to the people through the mail.
And get this, I went to the producers of Three's Company 3 different times. Chrissy Snow is a brand. I told them we should do a line of Chrissy Snow clothes, the hot pants, the suspenders, the knee socks, the clip-on, ponytails, the whole thing. And they got mad at me. And I remember Nikki Ross, he said, this is not about business. This is about the show. And even at that time, I thought, it's called show business. And then I went to them again and I said, I think we're missing the boat. Chrissy Snow is perfect for animation. She'd be a perfect animated Saturday morning cartoon. They got mad at that. I went to them one more time. I said, Chrissy Snow should be a movie star. The Adventures of Chrissy Snow. All the little girls would come dressed like Chrissy to the movie. And they would have.
Yeah.
So I was working with partners who didn't get entrepreneurship at all. I did from the very beginning, probably because I'm married to Alan Hamel, and he did. He would, the look that I created for Chrissy Snow was so defined that the little girls would show up at the show taping dressed like her. And that was evident to me that this, it struck some kind of chord. And to this day, people dress up like her for Halloween parades and things like that. But life is a journey, isn't it? And with each step of the way, we get slapped down, we pick ourselves up and learn something and take 2 steps forward, then we get slapped down again. And it's a never ending process of that. And what Alan and I have today is we own our business. We have no boss. I don't ever want a boss again. We have really, especially for people our age, understood learn to understand how to monetize the social media. So we do 3 live shows a week on Facebook Live. We have a bar at our house called Big Al's Bar. Our most popular shows are the shows that we do from the bar. Like I'm going to do one tonight, 5 o'clock. Come to Big Al's Bar. Bring your own tequila, bring your own salty things, dress up if you want, don't dress up. I get women who write me telling me what they're wearing. I can't see them. They're talking about the salty appetizers they made for themselves. And I realize none of us like the idea of drinking alone. Having a cocktail is a social thing that you do with others or your significant other. And so if they're alone and they can come to our bar and have a tequila with Alan and myself, and Alan and I have the narrative and the dialogue of whatever we're talking about. I sell product while I'm there, but not heavy-handed, just, the supplements that I think they'd be interested in, or the organic skincare and why you should care about organic skincare in today's world, especially organic hair care. How does a 73-year-old have healthy young hair? Well, I'm using hair care that has no chemicals, same for makeup. So they're very interested and like-minded. And every week I can't remember the percentage, but it's shockingly, like I remember when I was on HSN, Home Shopping Network, if we got 3% new customers, they jump for joy. There are weeks we get 30% and more because their word is out and the constituency is internet savvy. And probably my age group is more savvy with Facebook than with IGTV or any of the other networks. But we utilize as many as we can get devices hooked up. I'm having a ball. So it all worked out. Nobody else from that era that I'm aware of is working. I am working.
No, and you've consecutively worked, with all the shows that you did, and then you've done 27 books. And
27 books. Here's my most recent, A New Way to Age.
Love it. Great cover.
I love this book about there is a new way to age. The old way is what we've seen before us.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder nobody wants to age. When you look at our grandparents and those before them, they reach younger than I am now. They become decrepit, frail. They get one of the big 3 diseases: cancer, Alzheimer's, what's the other? Heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
And the end point is at the nursing home. And it's amazing to me how many people have already accepted the fact that one day they'll end up in a nursing home. You don't have to accept that. So what this book is about is what you can do now to set yourself up so you won't end up that way.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, I remember loving the fact that in Sex and the City 2, you were almost like a 5th character, because the character of Samantha, played by Kim Cattrall, who I absolutely love. Honey, you've got to read Suzanne Summers' book. It's all about aging gracefully. Were you made aware before the movie came out? Did they have to do a deal with you or anything? Or was it just a pleasant surprise that you got all this free advertising?
One call, Michael Patrick, I think that's the producer's name, Michael Patrick something. He might have 3 names.
Michael Patrick King.
King, right.
Yes.
He calls me out of the blue. I just finished reading your book, Breakthrough. Would you mind if I mentioned it in my upcoming movie, Sex and the City 2? I said, no, I love it. Oh my God. That kind of publicity you can't buy. And so we were invited to the premiere, and oh my, wasn't I surprised at the opening scene is that scene that the girls are sitting around the table and she's taking the pills. What are those? I'm taking bioidentical hormones. You should read Suzanne Summers' book. I was elbowing Alan. And then it was the recurring theme throughout the book, if you recall.
Throughout the
near
movie,
the end,
over
when they went to Morocco and they took her hormones away. She had a fit in the Moroccan marketplace, and these women in chadors pulled her into the back room, and they pulled out of their books, out of their chadors. You should read Suzanne Summers' books, they said to this crazy woman. So it was pretty heady for me. That was millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of free publicity.
Yes.
You couldn't have bought it.
Alan must have been proud of you. That must have been up
Well, we
there
were proud of both of us. Yeah.
with the ThighMaster. But like I love your marriage and your partnership. And now, how did you guys meet? You met on a show, didn't you?
Alan was the Johnny Carson of Canada.
Oh, okay.
He had the late night talk show. He had in the early days, the afternoon kids show that was sort of like when I grew up, there was a show called Howdy Doody, and there was Buffalo Bob. He wasn't Buffalo Bob. He came out dressed as Alan Hamel, and all the kids in the peanut gallery were, yay! And he'd come out and he'd go, shut up. And that was the kind of character he had, this irreverent character that the kids just loved. And he went on to do show after show. He was one of the most popular men on Canadian television, but it wasn't enough for him. So he came to Los Angeles and created a partnership with Dick Clark. And he and Dick Clark started producing TV shows, successful ones. And one of them was a show called Anniversary Game. They couldn't find any studio space in LA. So Alan said, I'll do the show, and I'll do it from KGO TV in San Francisco, which was an ABC affiliate. I was hired on day one to be the prize model, like Vanna White. I was the lousy prize model. I walked into the studio that day, and it was like boing for both of us. I do believe in past lives, and I have asked, whenever I've been in the presence of mediums, did I know him before? And I've been told over and over, we've spent lifetimes together. Some have said lifetimes. I knew him immediately that day. I knew him. And so I lost the job because I didn't know you're supposed to look at the camera with a red light. But he asked me out on a date that night, and we've been together for 50 years ever since.
And so
True love story.
At that time, you were a single mom, and your son was about how old?
Well, Alan and I went together for, I think, 7 or 8 years before we actually moved in together. So Bruce was, I'm bad with numbers, let's say maybe 5. By the time we moved to LA, he was 12 or 13. I was chomping at the bit. All I wanted was to be with Alan Hamel. I wanted to marry Alan Hamel. It was a very difficult time for him because he had a son of the same age. Very difficult. We are the first generation of divorce and blending families, and it was very difficult, the concept of living with me and my son and not living with his son. So eventually we rectified it by having his son move in with us, which was not easy. The boys were like Cain and Abel.
Oh, really?
Possessive of their individual parents. Bruce, my son, who was used to having his own room, had to share it with this new brother. So that was a difficult time, but it never, ever deterred me from wanting to be with him. And really, the fact that I wanted to be with him is probably why I got one of the biggest breaks in my career. I was still living in Sausalito, and I read in the trades that they were looking for a guest starring part on a show called Dom DeLuise. It was called Lots of Luck. I don't know if you remember Dom DeLuise.
Yes, of course.
In that era,
yeah,
he was quite popular. And it described me, small town girl, doesn't know who she is, doesn't know what she looks like. And I was smart enough to go, that's so me. So I got together the $25 to fly to LA, and I didn't know the rules. So when you don't know the rules, you're not breaking them. And I said to Alan, I have an interview at NBC Burbank at 2:00 Tuesday afternoon for a show called Lots of Luck. And Alan said, great, I'll pick you up at the airport. So he picks me up at the airport, which is all I really wanted. And he drives me over to NBC, and I think I'm doing everything right. And the guard says, things were different then. Why are you here? And I said, well, I'm here for the Dom DeLuise show. He said, oh, go park over there. So I go in. Alan waits in the parking lot. I kind of watch what the other girls who are there are doing, and they're all much better looking than me. But they all walk in, sign in something, and then the receptionist hands them a script. So I signed in, the receptionist handed me a script, and then I got called in to read. I didn't know you're supposed to have an agent. I didn't know anything, but because I didn't know anything, I wasn't breaking any rules. And after I read, the producer, the writer, Sam Denoff, who I eventually worked for in another show, Sam Denoff and Bill Persky, he said, very nice. And I thought, I know, I'm a small town girl. I don't know who I am, and I don't know what I look like. And he said, I'm going to give you a call back. I said, thank you. So I go out to the receptionist girl, and I said, I have a call back. She said, well, good for you. And I said, what is that? She said, well, they're going to call you back. I said, when? She said, I said, like today? She said, yeah, today. I said, well, where do I go? And now I'm becoming her problem
Yeah.
and she's irritated with me. So the next thing she said to me changed my life. She said, I don't know. Why don't you go wait in the commissary? So I go over and I wait in the commissary, and in walks Johnny Carson. And nobody else is, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. Nobody else is there. And I can't believe I'm seeing him live and in person. And then he starts walking over to me. And he says, hey, little lady, what are you doing here? And I said, I have a callback because see, now I have lingo. And he said, I told him about Dom Dooley. He's, oh, he's a friend of mine. I hope you get it. So I didn't have an 8x10 even. So I just handed him my little book of poetry, 1973. And I only had one credit. And it wasn't really a credit. When the movie came out, I wasn't credited, but I was the mysterious blonde in the Thunderbird in American Graffiti, produced by George Lucas, whoever that was. That's how much I didn't know. And I hadn't seen the movie because I really couldn't afford to go to the movie. So that was Wednesday. Friday of that week, I'm booked on the Tonight Show. And I thought, oh my God, they love my poetry. But I'm standing behind that famous curtain in a $75 dress that I wrote a bad check for because I didn't own a dress. And I figured I'd figure that out later. I hear Johnny Carson say, well, we've all been wondering who the mysterious blonde in the Thunderbird is. Well, we found her. And I thought, you were? And they open the curtain and the audience goes, woo. And it scared me because I didn't even know what the reaction was. And I sit down with Johnny and he says, well, everybody's been looking for you. And I'm thinking, you were? He said, when did you get to town? And I said, today. I'm just literal like a kid. You know, when I talk to my little grandchildren,
Yeah.
what are you doing? They go, talking on the phone. You know, they're literal. Well, he liked me because I was so naive and green and not slick. So he started having me on his show once a month to read him poetry. And my little book of poetry became the #1 best-selling book of poetry in America, along with Rodney McEwen. And in one or many of those appearances, Fred Silverman, who was then president of ABC, who passed away sadly this year, and he years later told me, he said, they had tried 2 other girls, the ones you're talking about. They did not test well. And Fred Silverman said, I got the girl. I see her on the Tonight Show all the time. So look at the luck. Well, and it started with me. I see the ad. I want to see Alan Hamel. I get together $25 I don't have. I fly to Los Angeles. I'm dropped off at NBC. I go in, I bluff my way in without knowing I'm bluffing. I end up sitting in the commissary, meeting Johnny Carson, get on the Tonight Show. My book becomes #1, and I eventually ended up on the #1 sitcom in America.
Wow, amazing. So
Now
great.
that was all luck, but here's where it worked against me. I tell the truth. And that's, you have to tell the truth, but sometimes it bites you in the butt. When I showed up on the Three's Company set on the first day, I said, I don't have any training. I had the lead in Guys and Dolls in high school as Adelaide, which, by the way, that's how I got my scholarship. And but I'm here to work real hard. And the whole cast and crew stopped and looked at me like, well, this is big time. We are sure not here to train you. What they didn't know is what a fast learner I was. So I watched John Ritter not for very long, and I got it. I heard the music of comedy. It like went off in my head like a bell. Like, oh, comedy is musical. I'm musical. It's set up, beat. So I don't think there are any accidents. I don't think my being fired was an accident. I don't think buying that almost $600 pair of shoes was an accident. As I look over the negatives in my life, they all led to something else. And a big part of my message in my books is use negative energy like judo, using forward energy to win. Don't let it get you down. How can you make this work for you spiritually and emotionally? And I'd like to say I was that smart, and maybe within I had an inherent smartness. I think I did. But I had a belief that I could do it. And it came from a lot of stuff. A very difficult and violent childhood that taught me what I call the "I'll show yous." When my father would just treat us so terribly, violently, I would think, one day I'll show you. So I think I saw in my mind's eye what I was going to make myself become, and became it. And no one was prouder than him. So
So when you were on the show, he was still in your life and living to see the success?
he had stopped drinking at that point. He stopped drinking. He drank alcoholically for 50 years, but then my mother finally got up the gumption to. She said all our life, "I'm going to divorce you," and we'd go, "No, no, don't divorce Daddy," because that was like nobody got divorced then.
Right.
And I think there came a time when she said it and meant it. And I think what she did not do was she didn't pick him up that night and drag him up the stairs in his passed out state. So after a week or so of waking up passed out on the kitchen floor, I think he started feeling pretty ashamed of himself. And he, on his own, said to her, "I want to go to Duffy's," which was an Irish dry out place. He grabs a 6-pack of beer, drinks the 6-pack of beer on the way up to Duffy's, arrives at Duffy's so drunk he falls off the front porch. And Duffy opens the door and he says, "Well, you're a hell of an excuse for an Irishman." He took my dad in, and months later, my dad came out sober.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And then I, at one point, insisted on an apology. I, you can sober up when you're an alcoholic, but there's a thing called a dry drunk, that all your bad behavior that you got away with because everyone was so afraid of when you were a drunk doesn't go away. So they're down at my house in Vegas. I'm now a headliner at, I think I was a headliner at the Hilton at that time. I had a 2-year deal at the Hilton. And we're driving home, and my agent was in my dressing room that night. And he's sort of one of those kind of bloviating, kind of an ass kind of guy, had cufflinks and doing the tie, and he didn't pay any attention to my father, which really bothered him. So on the way home, my father's going, it starts with an A and ends with a hole. What a jerk he is. And then in the morning, I wake up and I hear my father going, "Mommy, get me my coffee. Mommy, get me this. Mommy, get me that." And my blood started to boil, but oh my God, he's still the same person. So when he got home, they drove home to San Francisco that day. I called him and I said, "If anyone ever treated my mother or myself the way you did, I would kill them." And he said, "I thought I was doing so good." I said, "No, all you are doing is not drinking." So that was the beginning of the repair. Allowed me to forgive. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and I never held on to any kind of anger with him. And how could I? I mean, the life I've been living is so amazing. I have I believe, an enviable marriage. I write these books. I'm so proud of these books. How does someone who didn't get to go to college know how to write? And I do. And I think maybe by not going to college, I had to walk away from that scholarship because I got pregnant at 18. I think it heightened my instincts and abilities to learn. And I am self-taught. And now with the internet, you can teach yourself anything. But my books, there are 25 million books in print around the globe. That's pretty good for a little Irish girl here. Anyway.
I mean, it really is so incredible. I wanted to ask you, truly real, we always hear everything happens for a reason. Obviously, you talked about your life and all those things wouldn't have worked out. I've noticed in my own life that I don't really, sometimes you do regret something, but then maybe it'll take a couple years and then you have that moment where you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, if that didn't happen and that didn't happen and
Correct.
that, then, 3 years
Right.
ago, if the thing I regretted 3 years ago, I don't regret now because because of that, I'm here. And I think
Yeah.
that's always kind of a great lesson too, is, you know, even the most positive, optimistic person may in the moment not see that something's
Right.
going to work itself out, you know.
Yeah. It's about faith. Faith. Believe that it happened for a reason.
Hmm.
And I hate to interrupt.
Oh, look at him with
Yes.
his wife beater T-shirt.
I hate to interrupt, but you have another
You have to
interview.
go. Okay, I'll let you go.
Thanks. He keeps me way too busy. I really enjoyed this. Thank you
Oh
for
my
letting
God,
me
I
talk
love
about
it.
myself.
So the book is available now.
Yep. A New Way to Age.
A New Way to Age. Everyone
I
should
think
get it.
maybe it might be the best book
Hmm.
because even at your age, you're going to want to know what's in here so that you can maximize and not end up that unpleasant paradigm that we're watching. So it's about the choices that we make every day. And
I'm getting
aging
it. I'm
up.
going to visit you in Palm Springs.
Okay, make sure you do. Let me know. Okay?
I will. I'll let you know.
Big Al's Bar.
I will be there.
And for those of you, Friday nights we have our Big Al's Bar virtual, America's biggest virtual cocktail party. So don't miss it. And there's one tonight, just by chance. I don't know if this airs today. It was Friday
Awesome.
night. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, thank you. Bye bye.